Hey guys, Marcinkin here bringing another Dragon Ball Z Dokkan battle video, and so we didn't get any more news today or any kind of teaser or anything. We talked about the part 3 unit that is potentially going to drop by the end of this week. I think tomorrow we could see something. It's one of those things where it could be any day essentially that they're going to post a teaser, or even like when it comes to full details of a unit getting posted and animations and stuff like that, it's usually only a day or two before the thing actually drops. Now, the prediction on what's been going on from dates that are in the game and what generally seems to be the held belief is that the banner is going to come out on Friday. Now, we have new content coming out tomorrow. There's the burst mode and the fan voted event thing. So that stuff's all going to drop tomorrow. So then I think it's very likely that'll obviously be Tuesday morning for me, Monday evening if you're in the US. There probably won't be anything in that data download necessarily, because I think we still need to have the data download for that to be added, or I don't know if it was in the previous one. I know the map stages were there, so actually potentially we don't even need a data download, because obviously they're not going to spoil the new character with the data download. So we're either going to get a data download tomorrow morning and they're going to post a teaser or even just the full details so that that stuff can be in the data download, or it just means that there's going to be a data download later in the week. And then that means I would expect Wednesday morning to be when we see the full details of the unit get posted. But in the meantime, I just wanted to talk about obviously the potential for the Dokkan Fest Baby, which is what most of us are predicting is going to be the unit that drops. Now, with Dokkan, nothing is ever 100%. All we know is that a bunch of GT events are coming back. The Dokkan event that's supposedly going to be coming thanks to the ID, as described by Proton, is a event that does not exist already, so it's not a new stage for existing Dokkan event, which means it has to be a character with a unique name that doesn't have a Dokkan event already, which is why it's less likely it'll be something like Super Saiyan 4 Vegeta, because he already has a Dokkan event. Even if it was a Vegeta that transforms into Super Saiyan 4, they've still added those stages to existing events before, so he would potentially just be a new stage for the Super Saiyan 4 Dokkan event that we already have. So Baby seems like the most likely option. Again, it could be anything. I mentioned this on the stream this morning, like the day before that Global Dokkan campaign teaser dropped that had the Zamasu voice line at the end. Literally the day before, the night before, when we did the episode of the podcast on the Saturday, that tweet was then put out with the Zamasu voice probably like 9 hours later or something. Even when we did that episode, we were all convinced that Daima was going to be GDC with the hints that we'd seen so far. So it could still just be anything at the end of the day, but I'm running with the idea that it's going to be a Baby. Now, I don't know what form Baby is going to take, but I wanted to talk about the potential for his leader skill. Now, for this Super Baby 2, and the same with the LR, they have the brackets Giant Ape because they transform, which obviously gives them extra categories and stuff. I feel like a Dokkan Fest Baby would be a differently named either, even if he's just standalone Super Baby 2, or he's a Super Baby 1, or even just Baby Vegeta that transforms into Super Baby 2, I think is probably the way to go. Because, I mean, even though the LR only has a temporary buff, and then this guy is easy aid but can't be used in certain events, I still think it would be better to have one with a different name. So I've basically taken a look at the unawakened version. This is the guy that awakens into that Super Baby 2 Grey Ape, because he has all the categories that he would have without being a giant ape. And these are the ones that I've looked at in terms of talking about what categories and stuff he should potentially have for a leader skill. Now, bear in mind, this isn't, I'm not making a full concrete prediction on like, I think it's going to be these categories for the 200/170 and then these categories for the plus 50. I just wanted to talk about ones that would be a good combination for him to have. If you guys want to let me know in the comments what you think the best combination would be for his leader skill, then obviously do go ahead and let me know. So obviously the first thing straight off the bat that we want to talk about is that obviously Baby is on Inhuman Deeds and GT Bosses, but these are categories that obviously just got a new leader with the new Omega. And whilst obviously not everyone is going to have the new Omega, I do think it seems a little bit redundant to make him a leader for those categories. Because we have the Omega available. But, I mean, I guess I could see, like, GT Bosses maybe being part of his leader skill. And, of course, remember, there is the possibility that Inhuman Deeds or GT Bosses, I guess, could just be part of his plus 50% rather than the 170s like the Omega has, right? I could still see some tie over with that for sure. Now, GT Bosses obviously has gotten a lot of buffs with the EZAs and the new units that we've gotten. I'm still assuming we're probably going to get to Tech Super 17's EZA with this part 3 if we are getting a GT Dokkan Fest, which would obviously be another good addition to the team as well. But obviously GT Bosses is a bit restrictive in terms of the overall unit, so I could see him having this as one of the plus 50s if it ties in with some of the other characters, but GT Bosses I don't imagine would be part of his leader skill. We'll have to see. And then Inhuman Deeds, obviously it does give you a much wider scope of characters. Again, Omega has this lead. The thing that makes me less likely to think that he would have this as part of his leader skill is if we scroll down like to the SSRs, because those guys aren't awakened properly yet, but there's the baby possessed version of the Goten, Gohan and Trunks. I could certainly imagine those free-to-play units getting an awakening. Hopefully they don't do the instant EZA thing and they just make them good with the awakening. But those guys aren't on here, and this is the thing. They're not on GT Bosses because we know the way the bosses categories work, they only restrict to the actual final boss of the arc. So I feel like Baby's leader skill has to include them in some way, shape or form, right? Now, overall for Baby, Terrifying Conquerors is a pretty good one. We know that with the Worldwide Celebration units next upcoming for EZAs, we have the STR second form, the STR final form cooler. The metal coolers also on Terrifying Conquerors. Terrifying Conquerors would be a great category for Baby to lead, right? Because with the link set that he has, Big Bad Bosses, Metamorphosis, Thirst for Conquest, like a couple of the others not so great, but Big Bad Bosses, Metamorphosis and Thirst for Conquest, they're all links that he would share with Cooler. So him leading that kind of team is going to be pretty good. It means any future, like the Extreme Saiyans, including Turles, any of the Frieza like race characters, whether it's Frieza or Cooler, Demon King Piccolo, like a bunch of these characters are on Terrifying Conquerors, which would make a pretty solid leader skill for him. This guy getting an EZA could be interesting at some point, although I think he was the banner unit for the Tanabata Super Saiyan 4 Goku, so he's probably not going to EZA anytime soon. Honestly, the best thing for this Baby as well, by the way, is that his banner unit should just be another Baby. So if he's like Super Baby 2, his banner unit should be Super Baby 1. They did that in the past, right? When they released the Dokkan Fest Android 21, they made the Evil 21 her banner unit, and so then she had a perfect like unit for her team that had a bunch of the same links and stuff, right? That would be one of the best things they could do for this Baby, but that's kind of a side note. But Terrifying Conquerors definitely would be an interesting one. It has a lot of potential for future extreme characters to be on here. And then the same can be said for Space Traveling Warriors, which has a lot of crossover with Terrifying Conquerors. We've often seen in the past characters having one of these two as one of their 170s and then the other one as like the plus, well, it used to be plus 30 obviously, because there's a lot of crossover between those categories. But Space Traveling Warriors has a bunch of extra stuff. It does have a bunch of superclass characters on it as well, including some of the GT superclass characters, so you could have that little bit of a crossover with the superclass GT units, although to be fair, most of them are not the big ticket ones that we like to run usually. But Space Traveling Warriors characters like Bojack, which I imagine we'll probably get a new Bojack at some point. I could easily see a Gohan versus Bojack celebration at some point, so that we can EZA the Tech LR Super Saiyan 2 Gohan, get a new Bojack, get a new Gohan from that movie. It'd be pretty awesome. So Space Traveling Warriors is definitely one that I think could be included in his list of categories. Obviously Baby is on here, but again, the Tuffle Possessed Saiyans aren't on here. Are they on Terrifying Conquerors? I think, yeah, they are. So Terrifying Conquerors makes another good thing for his lead, because then the Tuffle Possessed Saiyans are on there. Like, again, his banner unit, if it's not a Baby, could be another version of the Tuffle Possessed Saiyans. It could be all three of them together even, because they'd all be on Hybrid Saiyans. I'm assuming they still count as being on Hybrid Saiyans. Let's open up the Gohan here. But yeah, these guys' categories are pretty limited in terms of the extreme categories. So Terrifying Conquerors, all of these other ones are essentially superclass categories, except for, of course, Corroded Body and Mind. So this is another interesting one, because we have the Rosés on there, we have Janembas on there, Metal Coolers on there. So this could be an interesting one to be part of his leader skill. Martian Vegeta's on there. I think because Corroded Body and Mind is a bit of a smaller category and nothing too crazy, I could see this one being one of his plus like 50%. Because imagine if he had Terrifying Conquerors and then one of his plus 50% is Corroded Body and Mind. That would include all the babies, because they're all on both of them anyway. And it would include all the Tuffle Possessed Saiyans. It would include Metal Cooler, because he's on Terrifying Conquerors. So when he gets his Easy A, he would get the full leader skill. Maybe one day we'll get a new Mars Saiyan. That'd be nice. But I could see Corroded Body and Mind being one of his plus 50s rather than the main lead. Although we haven't had a main lead Corroded Body and Mind since Rose. So that could be interesting. But the problem is, for Baby, if he has something like Corroded Body and Mind as one of his 170s, then any of his plus 50s, none of them are really going to apply to this guy unless the plus 50 is Terrifying Conquerors, which obviously if we could choose which way round we would want this to be, Terrifying Conquerors being one of the 170 leads would be significantly better, because Corroded Body and Mind is a much smaller category. Obviously the new Rosé's on here as well, so I mean it wouldn't be the end of the world if this was one of his 170s. It's still got some solid units and some good upcoming potential Easy A's, but I feel like this could be one of the plus 50s instead. I mean, it would be kind of cool for him to have Inhuman Deeds, even though Omega has it, because with the plus 4, like Corroded Body and Mind, that includes a lot of good characters on there. But yeah, Terrifying Conquerors I think is probably a better go-to for like a 170, but Corroded Body and Mind I feel like would be part of the leader skill, even if it's just the plus 50, so that we can get the Tuffle Possessed Saiyans on there. I think that would be pretty cool to be able to have a leader skill that includes them, but then also includes a bunch of the other like GT bosses and stuff as well. Because with the other GT bosses characters, there's the Shadow Dragons, which, I mean, unless we have GT bosses as a lead, they're not going to be included. But if we have GT bosses as a lead, we're not going to have the Tuffle Possessed Saiyans because they're not the bosses. So I guess in terms of GT bosses itself being a better team, GT bosses being one of his 170s would make a lot of sense. It's just, would they do that again right after releasing the Omega that has GT bosses? Who knows? Maybe they would. Because if he had GT bosses, Terrifying Conquerors, and something else, and then his plus 50% were Corroded Body and Mind, and then like Space Traveling Warriors or Inhuman Deeds, that could work out quite nicely for a lot of these characters, right? But the other big one is Artificial Life Forms. Because Baby's on Artificial Life Forms, the only leaders we have for that are Gamma 1 and the Exchange Boo. Unless there's probably... Actually, is there one missing that is... Because the wiki doesn't get updated as much as it used to anymore. So there is actually the possibility that there's one missing from here. Because we've had characters like STR Cell release, although I know he doesn't have one. The Tech Buhan doesn't lead it either. So, yeah, I think we are still pretty behind on actual Artificial Life Forms leaders. So an Artificial Life Forms leader skill for him would be pretty cool, because it has all the boos, it has all the cells, it has a bunch of the androids, obviously including Super 17, who, as we said, could be getting an Easy A. So imagine him having, like, Terrifying Conquerors, GT bosses, and Artificial Life Forms. And then his plus 50% is Corroded Body and Mind, and then, like, Inhuman Deeds. Like, so many of those characters would be on the full 220, with a mix of GT characters, androids, boo units, and stuff like that. That would actually work really, really well, I think. So Artificial Life Forms is a really good one for him to get. Having access to all the cells and the boos, androids, metal coolers, like, I think that would work really, really nicely as part of his leader skill. And then, of course, there is one final one that still hasn't had a great update in terms of leads, and apart from the worldwide celebration last year, which is Revenge. But of course, Broly suffers from that typical sort of thing where, yes, he leads Revenge, but being a unit that has basically Saiyan links and not big bad bosses, it doesn't really work super well with a category that is very heavily, extremely weighted. Like, there are a bunch of superclass characters on here. Obviously, Super Saiyan 3 Goku being a big one. The LR Bardock being on there as well, pretty cool. But largely extreme characters, right? Broly's, we've got Freezers, obviously Baby, Metal Cooler. A couple of these other, like... Mostly those guys, in fact. We've got some lesser characters like the Cyborg Tau and that you're not going to use. Garlic Jr., he'll eventually get an Easy A and probably a new Dokkan Fest with a transforming one, maybe. So Revenge has some potential, but it's definitely not like a big, crazy category. I could see it being one of his 170s if the other two are already big, expansive ones. Like if he has Artificial Life Forms and let's say Terrifying Conquerors, then they could throw Revenge in as a third one, because it's not a huge category, but it does give access to a decent amount of extra characters. So those are kind of the main categories that I think, in terms of the ones I think I want to most see for his 170. Terrifying Conquerors is up there because it has a lot of these other characters like Cooler, Turles, stuff like that, and of course includes the Tuffle possessed Saiyans. And then Artificial Lifeforms is a really good one for him to have access to all of the boos and all of the cells. Now obviously we don't know whether they'll give him 2 or 3 of the 170s. If we could have a third one on top of those two, Terrifying Conquerors and Artificial Lifeforms. Revenge, I think, is a decent as a third option, as long as he has 3. If he only has 2, Something and Revenge, I think, would maybe be a bit of a miss. But this could be a good third one. And then Inhuman Deeds is definitely a really good plus 50%, considering all of the other characters that are on there. With the new Omega and stuff like that. I really think, actually, if I could pick his leader skill, it would be GT Bosses, Terrifying Conquerors, and Artificial Lifeforms as the 170s, and then give the 50% extra to Inhuman Deeds and then Corroded Body and Mind. And then that would fit on all the Tuffle possessed Saiyans. Most of the GT bosses would be on there, like, well, the Omegas at least would be because of Inhuman Deeds. Texin's on there as well. So like, this would be really, really good, I think, as an overall leader skill for a Dokkan Fest baby. But let me know what you guys think down below in the comment section. And yeah, in fact, let me add a thing in here quickly. Okay, so I just wanted to use the leader skill creator on Dokkan Info. I did say at the beginning I wasn't going to predict a specific leader skill, but I do think this one would be really cool, right? So GT Bosses, Artificial Lifeforms, Terrifying Conquerors, with the 50% going to Corroded Body and Mind and Inhuman Deeds, right? And this would be all the units that would get his full leader skill. So we've got the Omegas on there, we've got any future Golden Freezers, Metal Cooler when he gets his Easy A, Super 17, which means any new Super 17, any new Full Power Freezer, obviously any other baby units. And then, yeah, these are the full this are the characters that will be getting the full 220. So we've got Lord Slug on there, who could still be pretty good. I guess in terms of who gets the full 220 leader skill, it's not the craziest. It has a lot of, like, future potential. But they should be, I guess, if we go all the way down. They're such old units, I don't know. They're going to be on here somewhere. Where is the... Yeah, there's the Tuffle possessed Saiyan. So if we get Awakenings or new versions of them, they're all on here. It's definitely not the craziest leader skill in the world, don't get me wrong. But with the 170s having so many options for Terrifying Conquerors and Artificial Lifeforms, like characters like Super Easy A Buhan, or like Terrifying Conquerors Final Form Cooler LR when he gets his Easy A, like, would be good enough on the team with a 170 lead if the team itself is good. And, you know, Baby could have a kit where he's giving support or something like that as well. So I don't know, let me know what you guys think. I mean, seeing the units that are listed here, especially the LRs, it's definitely not like the craziest leader skill combo, but I don't know, I just whipped this off the top of my head, so let me know what you guys think. But let me know your thoughts on what his leader skill should be down below in the comment section. If you don't think it is going to be Baby, let me know your thoughts on who it could be and what their leader skill could be as well. But let me know all your thoughts on this down below in the comment section. So that is going to be it for the video, guys. This has been the Masked Ningen. Smash that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new. Check out the links down below, and I will see you all again soon. Have a good one.